First day of October and the second to last day of the regular season, and it is on a very fall-feeling afternoon. Fox Saturday Baseball welcomes you to the Philadelphia Phillies, playing host to the defending nationally champion New York Mets. A Mets team on the verge of back-to-back postseason appearances for just the second time in franchise history. The stakes are as clear as this. A Met win this afternoon, they will not only clinch a wild card berth, they'll host the wild card game next week to begin the postseason. With that, we welcome you inside the broadcast booth with Hall of Famer John Smoltz, Matt Vasgersian. The tale of the 2015 Mets, John, well told. We know how they got there. This year it's been a little bit different. Injuries throughout the starting pitching ranks and an offense that didn't really come alive until the month of September.
Yeah, it's really been amazing if you think about it. 17 guys on the disabled list. Everybody knows about the starting pitching they had last year. Well, that starting pitching's kind of fallen apart with the names of Harvey, DeGrom, Matz. They've needed their whole roster to get them to this point. But what the Mets are hoping is, much like last year, their offense gets hot at the right time. They went out and got Cespedes. This year they went out and got Bruce. No Daniel Murphy, and he's gotten a little bit hot of late. It didn't start out real well, but that's what they're hoping. The Mets have had to utilize so many different players. They're hoping Bruce can be this year's Daniel Murphy, at least for the next 30 games or so.
You know, on the pitching side, and we'll see him today, if you'd been told on opening day that Bartolo Colon would turn into the most reliable starting pitcher at the age of 43, you'd think that something had gone desperately wrong. That has been the case, and it's Colon that is 9 innings away from putting the Mets back into the postseason today.
Well, if you love velocity, you love youth, that's not what you're going to see tonight. Today you're going to see Bartolo Colon throw 89% fastballs. He's basically going to sink it, move it in, out. This guy has mastered the ability to throw strikes and really not trick anybody. Say, here's what's coming. Good luck hitting it. And for the Mets, they put their hopes on Bartolo Colon, their oldest pitcher, to get him into the postseason.
Cardinals are home this afternoon with the Pirates. The Giants play host to the Dodgers later tonight, but none of that'll matter if the Mets can finish business and win here today and head to the postseason in back-to-back years for just the second time in franchise history. We're back with play-by-play. Mets and Phillies are next. That we are on the verge of postseason baseball. 60 degrees at Citizens Bank Park this afternoon. Back with John Smoltz and Ken Rosenthal. Matt Vasgersian for our final Saturday of the regular season. And the Mets turning it over to Bartolo Colon to try to take them back to the promised land this year. Let's get you right to Terry Collins' lineup before we talk Colon. The Mets lineup brought to you by Pepsi. Jose Reyes has hit in 6 in a row. He'll lead things off today. The two-time All-Star is Drupal Cabrera trying to snap out of an 0-for-9, batting second. Yoenis Cespedes, Curtis Granderson, and Jay Bruce, All-Stars at one point or another in their career 3 through 5. T.J. Rivera has hit safely in 14 of 17 down the stretch. James Looney, Travis d'Arnaud, and the starter Colon rounded out for the Mets. It is 27-year-old right-hander Phil Klein set to make just his second starting assignment of the year, a relative newcomer to the Philadelphia Phillies this season.
Yeah, along with their rebuilding process, they're trying to get to the end of the season. They've shut some guys down, and so they are going to rely on a lot of guys possibly to get through this game. But Klein, you see easy motion, fastball, sinker, occasional four-seamer that he'll throw, not overpowering the slider, and a changeup. And if nothing else, the storyline of this game is pretty simple. A lot to play for the Mets. The Phillies trying to do something they have not done the last 5 or 6 games, and that's play a complete baseball game to finish the season.
Pete Maccannon's defense today for the Phillies. He continues some on-the-job auditioning for 2017, getting good long looks at the corner outfielders. Jimmy Paredes, who's been around, and Aaron Altair, who they're still very high on. Note Ryan Howard starting at first base. We'll be talking a lot about one of the all-time Philadelphia Phillies throughout the broadcast today, playing in his final weekend as a Philly. Jose Reyes ready to start things out for New York. Reyes, Cabrera, and Cespedes. The Mets not concerned with scoreboard watching today per se against St. Louis at home with the Pirates. Giants later on tonight with Los Angeles. A Mets win today not only puts them in the wild card game next week, it puts them as hosts back at Citi Field waiting for an opponent. Reyes lays off, and it's a 1-1 count to the New York leadoff hitter.
Reyes has done a nice job since being acquired by the Mets. I don't know how many people thought he would be able to adjust to third base, how much offense he would provide, but he's given them the energy. Talking to Terry Collins, he said we have desperately needed that energy and the ability to get out there. He's always got a smile on his face.
And in front, 3 balls and a strike, as was the case yesterday and as has been the case for much of the last couple of years. John, these Mets Phillies games at Citizens Bank take on the sound of a Mets home game at times. It was certainly the case yesterday in the series opening win for New York. Jay Bruce hit a home run, and if you closed your eyes, you'd have thought you were at Citi Field in Flushing, Queens. There's a payoff pitch home to Reyes. It's slashed right to Michael Franco. John, the Ford keys to the game this afternoon.
Well, much like the way the Mets are built, you know, they basically got to keep scoring runs, but put that long ball in play. They've been utilizing the home run all year, so why change? And then for Philly, they're basically going to have to piece the game together, whether it be with the pitching or the offense. They've got to find ways to get back. They've won a lot of close games. Most of their games this year that they have won, a good percentage of it have been close. Lately, that's not been the case. They've been giving up a lot of runs as a team.
Here's this Drupal Cabrera now, who, as we mentioned, tries to snap out of a modest 0-for-9 to start play this afternoon. The two-time All-Star has been an important factor down the stretch for New York. And he's quickly behind 0-2.
Unfortunately, for a good portion of my career, every game towards the end of the season, you had something to play for because we were in the playoffs a lot. But when you're not in the playoffs, that's a theme that often gets difficult to finish as strong as you can. But for this team especially, these young players are trying to make impressions for the future, to continue to play for the Phillies in the big league club. And they're monitoring every game to assess what they have moving forward. And the challenges, well, they're there. They're trying to turn around a franchise that's been proud for a long time.
1-2 pitch is fouled away. Still the ball and 2 strikes on his Drupal Cabrera. We mentioned the note when we went on the air, John. The last time the Mets got to the postseason, the last and only time that they had reached the postseason in back-to-back years was between 1999 and 2000. Making that memorable World Series appearance in 2000, the Subway Series against crosstown rival Yankees. And Terry Collins admitted to us this season has been a drain. Ugh. And I think we could all understand why. 2 balls and 2 strikes. The count to is Drupal Cabrera. Skips off the mound. Blanco backs up to play a tricky hop and then yanks the throw. Cabrera's aboard with 1 away.
You see the distance of which he had to throw this ball. And once you get into the outfield, he turns and I think just trying to get as much on it as he can. The ball sails right there. I think they're going to rule that a hit.
So 1 out, 1 on now for the 2-time All-Star Yoenis Cespedes. He's hit safely in 3 straight and trying to pick up Cabrera at first to start the ball game today. Cespedes rolls over on the first pitch. Blanco to Hernandez for 1, and the Phillies double him up. Nothing for New York to start the afternoon. Through a half inning, Mets 0, Phillies coming to bat. And time to look at Pete Maccannon's Phillies Pepsi starting lineup. They too start out with switch hitters off the top. Cesar Hernandez and Andres Blanco. Duple Herrera, an all-star this year in center field, batting third. Michael Franco, Brian Howard, and Cameron Rupp 4 through 6. Jimmy Paredes, Aaron Altair, and Phil Klein round things out for the Phillies. And it is the timeless wonder, 4-time All-Star and 2005 Cy Young Award winner, the 43-year-old Mets wins leader Bartolo Colon on the mound today. Colon coming off a start on Monday that came under difficult circumstances as he goes to work on Cesar Hernandez. It was the first game back for the Miami Marlins after the tragic loss of Jose Fernandez, and Colon was out there in a very emotional night. Lasted only 2 1/3. Was one of his worst starts of the year. Gave up 7 earned on 8 hits. Didn't strike anybody out, and was on the bad end of a 7-3 decision. One that became much less the story. Certainly nobody concerned about Colon on that day or the Mets, as all the attention was on the Marlins for all the right reasons. 2 balls and 2 strikes to Cesar Hernandez.
Well, for Bartolo Colon, it doesn't matter if you're right-handed or left-handed. He's going to pitch you the same. He does need the bottom tier of the strike zone, though, early on. A couple of those pitches, that is what's going to make him effective, throwing that many fastballs and sinkers. But what you'll see is a lot of left-handers swinging late like that because he starts the ball in, looks like it's going to be a ball, and then what is called a front door sinker freezes up left-handers. This late kind of up ball, and then see the movement right there and the late swing.
2 balls and 2 strikes on the Phillies leadoff hitter. Popped him up. And this one's going to stay playable for Jose Reyes to start the afternoon for Bartolo Colon.
Well, it is amazing when you think about the Mets, and I would have never guessed this number. You know about their injuries. We well documented their starters have been now a few of them out for the season. Bartolo, he just keeps on ticking along with Syndergaard.
1 gone now for Andres Blanco, the switch hitting shortstop.
But as a staff, they've only used 22 pitchers. That to me is an amazing statistic when you think of the injuries they've had. And what's even more amazing about that, they've used more starters than relievers. So more guys to start a game than the actual relievers. So they've kept their relievers healthy. They've rested them. They've just needed a lot more opportunistic starters to fill the gap in some of their injuries. And some unlikely guys lately have come in and contributed quite nicely in their latest quest to get back to back-to-back playoffs. When they were 5.5 games back of the Giants, it did not look good, and it was late.
Yeah, you can kind of trace it back to a Bartolo Colon start in late August when they kind of started this run. August 20th, the Mets were 2 under 500, 5.5 games behind in the wild card race. And because of a variety of things, Jay Bruce getting hot, Asdrubal Cabrera getting hot, Colon and Syndergaard doing the heavy lifting on the mound, they are not only in it, but on the verge of hosting the wild card game next week as Andres Blanco strikes out.
And see, there's the one that goes away, and the left-hander may have been anticipated it in. And that late movement is so difficult. I know if you're sitting at home and you're watching, how can people not just sit there knowing fastballs are coming and absolutely have their way with his fastball? It's because he changes speeds with it and makes it move.
Here's Odubel Herrera now, the 2016 All-Star.
I always thought that Bartolo Colon had to have one of the strongest shoulders. Watch this short arm delivery. He doesn't have a full swing. See how that ball goes behind his head, but then his landing, and he's very athletic for his size. Don't let the size confuse you into thinking he can't field his position, or at least get an athletic position to repeat his mechanics, which is what he does pretty well.
Well, for all the reasons you just went through, the fact that, Colon leads the staff in wins. They lose Harvey, they lose DeGrom, they lose Matz. These are all conversations that would be attached to a losing team. You'd never guess we'd be having these same discussions in talking about a Mets team on the verge of going back to the postseason. And an excuse me swing and miss by Odubel Herrera. 2 strikeouts for Bartolo Colon to start the day. To the second no score in Philly. Today's telecast is sponsored by the 2017 Ford Fusion, the beauty of a well-made choice. Nothing early against either Phil Klein or Bartolo Colon as we welcome you back inside top half of the second inning. Curtis Granderson leads things off for New York. Granderson, Bruce, and Rivera against the 27-year-old young starter Phil Klein. Klein got through the first despite a one-out single. Bartolo Colon with a couple of strikeouts in his first inning as you see the Phillies in a right side overload against Curtis Granderson, something employed often against the veteran left-handed hitter. Granderson's hit safely in 5 in a row, and he, like many of his Met lineup mates, has enjoyed some definite peaks and valleys to the season this year. Lined into right. And a leadoff single in the Mets' second.
Granderson has a unique way. I mean, obviously a lot of home runs, not a lot of RBIs, but you're doing him a favor right here. If this ball doesn't bounce, he is set and locked in that area. It's much more difficult for him away, and obviously much more difficult if that pitch bounced because he can swing over the top of it. Jay Bruce, who now has gotten into a better feel because the Bruce was sounding more like booze for a long time after they got him. He's been erasing those doubts now.
Yeah, he sure has. Jay Bruce has been red hot. Starts play having homered in 3 straight games, 3 for 4 with a home run yesterday. He's hit safely in 6 straight overall, and it comes on the heels of a fairly miserable first 7 weeks as a New York Met. He's got Granderson aboard to start the inning, and Bruce sends a ball to deep center field. Herrera there just shy of the track to put it away. You know, it's been said as we say hello to Ken Rosenthal for the first time this afternoon, Kenny, it's been said that for some players a midseason trade to New York is the most difficult thing in baseball, and Jay Bruce might agree.
He might, Matt, because he has stayed in 5 different hotels since joining the Mets, and he also spent one night in an apartment that he said was unfit to live in. But he said the most difficult part of his transition has been being away from his wife Hannah and his 5-month-old son Carter. He says he's very proud to be a dad, and he really hasn't been able to be one. But all that said, Jay Bruce is not one for excuses. He said, this is not a pity story. I wanted a chance to win, and I've got one.
Indeed. Here's T.J. Rivera now with a runner aboard and 1 away. I mean, Bruce has been the last 2 weeks what Cespedes was in the final 2 months of 2015.
Yeah, I shake my head at the emergence of Cespedes and the Mets when they got him, and still what he's done this year. The success when he plays. You think about it. The Mets got there last year with a unique formula that not every team can coin. 4 dominant pitchers, 1 red hot, and now we're seeing it wasn't just a 2-week Daniel Murphy stint, and a Cespedes that basically turned the franchise around in a almost MVP like fashion. And they made the improbable chase down of the Nats, almost go full bore 7 games with the Kansas City Royals. And so you can imagine this year the high expectations they would have coming off of last year.
Rivera sends a little pop onto the right side of the infield for Howard, and out number 2. Well, they put themselves in some significant holes each of the last couple of years. Last season through the end of July, 3 games back, just 2 games over 500. Nobody saw the run coming, and same can be said this year when they were 2 games under 500 as recently as August 19th.
Yeah, and if I remember coining the phrase, be careful what you wish for, because last year, of course, they pushed their starters to the brink and beyond with all the innings limits and the protection of arms and the young arms. It has definitely showed itself this year, with 3 of them succumbing to injuries.
Here's James Looney now batting with 2 gone and a runner at first.
And the 4th one, Syndergaard has an injury that they will take care of after the season, bone spurs. So you can imagine limping into this point would be an easy description but not to those young men that they called up, who have filled in very nicely in the starting rotation. As we already mentioned, Bartolo Colon pretty much making all his starts this year.
Where would they be without Robert Gesellman and Seth Lugo? Terry Collins made it clear to us in meeting with him before the game that those guys should be given a lot of credit. One ball and one strike on James Looney. By the way, thinking back to Kenny's report about Jay Bruce staying in a bunch of different hotels, how does a major league player, especially an all-star like Bruce, get himself into an apartment that's unfit to live in? I can just see Jay Bruce walking into a place with his luggage like Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy in Coming to America, right? Like some ransackled apartment someplace, some 4-story walk up with a leaky air conditioner and rats. I can't see, how does that happen with a big league player?
Well, you know, when you've only been in one place and you rely on others and you're in late trade, those are the things that certainly come into play that no one factors in, because you're supposed to have all the resources and answers. But it's a very difficult transition, one that I'm sure he's glad he's getting a chance to be in a playoff situation.
Looney sends it on the ground to Franco, over to Howard to retire the side. Nothing comes of the leadoff base hit. Ryan Howard bats second as we go to the home half of the second in Philly with no score. Telecast is sponsored by Bank of America. Welcome back inside Citizens Bank Park. A scoreless tie early, bottom half of the second. And Bartolo Colon back to work. He gets the middle of the Phillies order. Maikel Franco, Ryan Howard, and Cameron Rupp.
Franco particularly going up there 0 for 14 off of Bartolo.
Colon with back-to-back strikeouts to end the first. He got Blanco and Herrera. And Maikel Franco, a guy that's been known to swing and miss a little bit. He's hit safely in 9 of his last 10, however, trying to finish strong. Colon misses the corner. It's a ball and 2 strikes. And he made him chase. That's 3 straight strikeouts for Colon. So with 1 out and the bases empty, it'll be the 3-time All-Star and one of the franchise greats, Ryan Howard. As has been the case these last number of home games, getting a nice warm ovation as he's into his final set of plate appearances as a Philadelphia Philly. .24 home runs for Howard, somewhat redeeming, yet the batting average under 200. And though he is not the Ryan Howard that terrorized the National League in the 2007, 8, 9 vintage of the Phils, he has polished up a nice farewell season. They play him in the shift. He hits it into the shift for out number 2. The Philly Inquirer's Matt Gelb had I think a real poignant line on Howard when he wrote, "The general managers who drafted him and signed him to the contract extension have been let go. He is the last Phillies player born in the 70s. His current general manager, Matt Klentak, is younger than he is." And all that meaning a great run has come to a close. It has not diminished the impact he's made on the franchise, and I think Matt went on to say that in his story in the Inquirer. And as you can tell by the warm applause he has received here these final days, he's going to kind of ride out of here as one of the greats, a fan favorite. Here's Cameron Rupp with 2 gone.
Well, they made this place look like a bandbox. I mean, literally. He destroyed the baseball at an incredible rate when this place was built. It almost looked like it was built for Ryan Howard, and the staff that they assembled exceeded. I mean, you think about the history this organization has had with the run they had with those players, and Utley and Howard and Jimmy Rollins, and the length they got out of most of them. I just don't think Howard was ever the same after that incredibly tough injury in Game 5 against the Cardinals, the clincher. The last out of the game. I believe it was the last out of the game.
It was the last out of the series, was it not?
Yes,
and it was the Achilles that you talk about, and it took him a long time just to get back on the field, but 381 career home runs over 13 seasons, almost 1,200 RBIs. There's a bouncing ball to second for T.J. Rivera. 6 up, 6 down for Bartolo Colon to start the afternoon. Talk more about Ryan Howard as we continue today to the 3rd. No score in Philly. Travis d'Arnaud leads off the Mets half of the third. d'Arnaud, then Colon, and top of the order Reyes in a scoreless game early on today. Welcome back with Hall of Famer John Smoltz and Ken Rosenthal. Matt Vasgersian again on the line for the Mets this afternoon. Big picture. A win here today not only guarantees a wildcard berth, it gives them the home field advantage next week. And as we keep our eyes on Pittsburgh and St. Louis, a Jung-Ho Kang home run against Michael Wacha has given the Buccos a 3-0 lead in St. Louis today. The Cardinals just fighting for their very lives here, down to just 2 games left, and on the outside looking in that National League wildcard race.
It's been a lot of tough things to explain in baseball this year. Injuries have always taken its toll on the clubs. But one of the hardest things to explain is the lack of success that St. Louis has had at home this year. That is as puzzling as it gets, and certainly they're still in a fight to get to that last spot.
2 balls and 2 strikes the count to Travis d'Arnaud. You know, there is a little bit more clarity in the National League by virtue of having fewer teams mathematically alive for the 2 wildcard spots. The American League is really jumbled up now, and Toronto's late season swoon has kept hope alive in places like Seattle and really made for some complicated formulas. d'Arnaud strikes out, and there's 1 away in the 3rd.
Now you see the late movement on two-seamer down the middle. He couldn't pull the trigger. Tried to fake it and walk it off as if it was a ball, but he knew. Catchers know.
I bring up Bartolo Colon now with 1 away. Been an entertaining season for Colon at the plate. How's that for diplomatic?
Yeah.
Never regarded as one of the better hitting pitchers. It never really struck me as something he was that interested in. But when you run into a home run at the age of 43 with Bartolo Colon's svelte kind of physique, it tends to excite people, as it did earlier this year. And Bartolo Colon is caught looking, 2 gone. We welcome some more of you here into Philadelphia, and a reminder as to what's at stake. We've been talking about the National League wildcard race, and for the Mets, Terry Collins very aware that a win here not only clinches a wildcard berth, it means that the National League wildcard game will be played at Citi Field in Flushing, Queens next week. Giants later on tonight hosting the Dodgers. San Francisco trying to hang on to that 2nd wild card spot.
It's interesting too, because you'd always think that you want to get home field advantage. I don't think that's important as much as getting in at this point. I don't think the Mets are concerned as much of a scenario plays out, and neither have the successes of other teams have not played out very well when they've hosted the home game in the wild card scenario.
Yeah, it's surprising the lack of home field success in the wild card over the past handful of years. Only 2 of those teams have won. Kenny, you know, we talked with Terry Collins about this before the game, the discussion that was being kicked around. Would the Mets perhaps hold Noah Syndergaard and pitch him on Sunday if they could get home field advantage? He quickly squashed all that discussion. One-two to Reyes, first of all, fouled away.
Well, think about it, Matt. Arrieta in Pittsburgh, Bumgarner in Pittsburgh, Keuchel last year in New York, John Lester in Kansas City for the A's until it all fell apart in the 8th inning a couple of years ago. The key here is getting the right pitcher on the mound. It doesn't matter where you play.
And a 1-2 pitch to Reyes is swung on and missed. Phil Klein strikes out the side in the top half of the 3rd. Still no score in Philly. Greatness and unstoppable drama of the 2016 postseason begins on Tuesday, October 4th. Go to MLB.com/postseason for a full schedule. Jimmy Paredes leads things off in the Philly half of the third. Paredes, Altair, and Klein bottom third of the order against Bartolo Colon in a still scoreless tie early on. Of course, the postseason feel has been alive for a lot of these teams the last couple of weeks. The Cardinals among them. Seattle. Two teams hoping for some friendly math and to win out down the stretch. And as Paredes flies out, there's one away. Here are some of the clinch scenarios today around Major League Baseball, in addition to the one we're talking about regarding the Mets. For the Red Sox, home field advantage in their division series matchup with Cleveland if they can win, and if Cleveland loses today, and the Indians are in Kansas City facing Edinson Volquez and the Royals. For the Nationals, they get home field advantage against the Dodgers in their division series if they can win tonight and they play host to Miami, or if the Dodgers lose in San Francisco. Lastly, the Orioles, who beat up on Toronto this week, and they'll get a wild card berth with a win and a Tigers loss. Tigers are scrapping, making things interesting in the American League. They're in Atlanta again today.
Yeah, and an interesting twist and a good one. A rule change for tomorrow. Every game will be started at the same time, which it doesn't give any team an advantage to decide if they want to rest their starter for a potential play-in game or that wild card game. So with every game being played at the same time, you have to make a decision, unlike years past where there's varying times West Coast, East Coast. The Cardinals come to mind when they were able to rest Carpenter.
Yeah.
The year we beat the Astros on the final day. And therefore, as you can see that strikeout, therefore the Cardinals could start Carpenter game 1. And then they went on to win the World Series. Again, if you're sitting at home and you wonder why a guy takes that pitch, it looks like it's outside, and the late movement brings it back over the plate.
Another milestone for Colon. He has just passed Charlie Huff for 44th on the all-time strikeout list. Next up, Sandy Koufax. He won't get there this year, but if Bartolo Colon pitches again in 2017, and there's no reason to believe he won't, he'll start passing more legendary Hall of Fame players. Koufax, Dennis Eckersley's in his sights. Think about what he's accomplished at his age. I know that sounds like a backhanded compliment. It's not intended to. He has been terrific this year.
Well, it's interesting. Try to get this in as quick as I can. He's benefited from the new philosophy in baseball where we're enamored with velocity, velocity, velocity. But guess what? Injuries, injuries, injuries. He stays healthy. People are going to look at him a little differently moving forward. Whereas a position player, the age means so much more. And it's interesting how they look at it.
Just nibbling away with fastballs that are moving and dancing, and he has struck out 5 through the first 9. 3 perfect innings for Bartolo Colon, and Yoenis Cespedes is due up as we head to the top half of the 4th. Today's telecast is sponsored by Domino's. Order online and track your order. And by T-Mobile, bringing you greater coverage of today's game. Still no score, top of the 4th inning, and Asdrubal Cabrera leads things off for New York. It's Cabrera, Cespedes, and Granderson, 2, 3, 4, part of Terry Collins' order against the 27-year-old Phil Klein, who has yielded only a couple of singles today. Pete McCann told us before the game he'd love to think he could get 3, 4, maybe even 5 innings out of Klein, who has not had a lot of success as a starting pitcher in the big leagues this year, though his AAA starting numbers were very impressive. Phil's better success at the major league level has come out of the bullpen, but so far so good this afternoon.
He's done a nice job just mixing up his pitches, and a guy like Klein, he's a bigger guy, and it has a what I call long arm delivery, right? So the ball sometimes when it comes out and the timing of it will get quicker on a hitter than the velocity that is read, but he has to mix up his secondary pitches. The only downside of a long arm delivery guy is he can get his body out in front and gets underneath, and that command goes away. So I'm sure with his height and delivery, he fights that from time to time.
The appeal down to third on Cabrera's check swing, and crew chief Ted Barrett says he did hold up, so the leadoff walk for Asdrubal Cabrera. Leadoff hitter aboard for the 2nd inning for the Mets. Granderson singled to start the 2nd. They were unable to advance him, so we'll see what happens with Cabrera sharing a moment with Ryan Howard. A couple of veteran players. Well, Cabrera's really been good for the Mets this year. 23 home runs. In fact, is the first Mets shortstop ever with 20 or more homers in a season. Here's Yoenis Cespedes now. I think, Kenny, when they brought Cabrera into Flushing, Queens, they knew they were getting a good, versatile player, but he's given them a whole lot more.
Definitely has, Matt. 2 years, $18.5 million. They liked him as a switch hitter, versatile guy, as you mentioned. They figured 750 OPS. Well, he's got an 809 OPS coming into today. That's the highest of his career at age 30. And hitting coach Kevin Long said he reminds him of Martin Prado. Prado's a guy that Long had with the Yankees, and that's high praise. Prado, a guy like Cabrera, they play every day, they play when they're hurt, and they play with high intensity.
He's had some big hits down the stretch for the Mets as well. 0-2 the count to Cespedes with Cabrera aboard. Back to Klein, to Hernandez for 1, and that's the 2nd time in as many at bats that Yoenis Cespedes has bounced into a double play in this game.
Yeah, Cespedes gets this one off the end of the bat. See the slider breaking down. He gets it off the end of the bat. At this point, only a bad throw is going to change the result. Cespedes has been cooled off a little bit. He's gone through some tremendous hot streaks, but lately a little cooled off. That's where Bruce and Granderson have been picking up the slack. But if the Mets are to have any kind of run in the postseason, saying they get there and winning one of the next 2 games, they need an unreal hot offense.
Here's Curtis Granderson now. Again, he singled and was stranded at 2nd to start the inning.
The reason I say that is because it would be improbable to think that they could pitch at the level that they did last year, missing the stuff in their rotation that is currently on the DL and out.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. As good as Gesellman has been, as good as some of the younger starters have been, you can't count on winning 2-0 games all the time, and that's going to drop in front of Paredes. A single and now a double for Curtis Granderson this afternoon.
Well, of course, they've got Granderson shaded way over to pull, and this wind is blowing everything to the left field corner. So you watch Paredes when he first goes after this ball. When he puts his head down, you know he's in trouble because that ball keeps drifting away, and he's putting it in the best speed that he can to catch up, and Granderson benefits from a non-traditional double out of Curtis Granderson.
So a runner in scoring position now for Jay Bruce. He hit the ball hard but lined to center back in the 2nd.
The other area the Mets team will have to get better in these next few games with the runners in scoring position has been a very difficult time this year.
0-1 the count to Jay Bruce, and that stat might come as a surprise to some. How the Mets have struggled with runners in scoring position this year. They've had a tremendous home run season, yet batting only .224 as a team in situations like this. This is the lowest in baseball. They're like the National League's version of the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah, I mean, the team's built around home runs, and as shocking as that may sound to a team that had trouble not only a few years ago because of their spacious ballpark hitting home runs, they now are a home run hitting team, and a high percentage of their runs comes via the home run.
Bruce stinging around on 2 strikes.
And that is just a formula that does not breed success to make deep runs, to win championships. If they can get that, if they can get somehow the cut down strikeouts and better at bats, but that's like changing stripes in a series. It just doesn't work that way for baseball to be played a certain way all season and then turn around and become a different ball club.
Bruce, for his part, has been very good with runners in scoring position this year, but again, so many of those numbers compiled in a Reds uniform before the trade. He was the best in the National League in that category. 1-2 the count. In this latest hot streak of Jay Bruce's, when he's gone nuts over the last 6 games, he's 4 of 8 with runners in scoring position. Trying to keep it alive for T.J. Rivera waiting next. The Mets' first at bat with a runner in scoring position today. We talked about those first 7 weeks in a Mets uniform. Not what New York thought they were getting, a 174 batting average, but look at what he's done in the last week. Again, he's homered in 3 straight. And he's put the lineup on his back this past week.
Well, in talking with Terry about just some of the in-season changes you can make, right? What do you do? What does a player do every single day he's struggling or hot? And they felt his eyes were just drifting a little bit when he was hitting. In other words, you try to keep your eyes behind the ball when you're going to swing the bat, and they felt like he was getting a little too out in front, which therefore makes the ball move more than it naturally does. And just that little adjustment, besides the ebb and flow of a season when you're going to have your ups and downs, might just be what it takes. You look at it, the way he sets up and the way that he coils the bat, you see his head. Well, when your head stays quiet and your eyes are real good, no different than when you're pitching, you got a better chance to execute what you're trying to see. But if your head bounces, your eyes move, or you have unwasted motion, hitting's not going to be something easily done.
Full count to him now. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Started this plate appearance 0-2. And now they're not even going to mess with him. Cameron Rupp pops out. They're going to intentionally pass Jay Bruce and try to pick on T.J. Rivera.
And what that is right there, that's just not having confidence in your pitcher to execute a pitch outside the strike zone to get him to swing. So with a base open, they're going to take that execution or lack of it, if that were to be the case, out of the pitcher's hands. You don't see it very often on a 3-2 pitch, but he didn't like the way he was trying to execute a sinker in, a front door sinker, and he kept missing away. So Pete Buchanan said, you know what, I'm not going to take that chance.
You see it even less in front of a guy that's hitting .337 and who's hit safely in 14 of his last 17 games. And T.J. Rivera isn't Darryl Strawberry. However, he has been a big-time contributor for the Mets since coming up from AAA Las Vegas.
Yeah, he really has. I kind of gravitate towards these stories to see how they play out. Does this guy play his way into a situation he normally wouldn't have had there been an injury? And how does it translate moving forward? We've already seen the Daniel Murphy effect. 1 hot 2 weeks carried into the postseason. Is that who he is? Well, he's shown that with the Nationals to be exactly that, and an MVP potential winner this year.
Back up the middle. Granderson is going to be waved around to score. And the Mets are on the board here in the top of the 4th inning. Well, it was Rivera last night with a big 2-out RBI single. And it is Rivera with a 2-out RBI single that starts the scoring today.
And this is what I was talking about. You never know who becomes a hero for a team that needs many of them just to get to the playoffs. Rivera has certainly done his part. And I thought right here, when Herrera gets this ball, if he would have gone to third base with Bruce going to third instead of the speedy Granderson, they might have had a chance to get an out. So here's what you have. You got Bruce at first. Now Bruce knows he's going to draw a throw either way. If he goes to third, there's a good chance Bruce can get thrown out, and the timing of the runner scoring and the play at third would have been interesting. But nonetheless, Herrera came up throwing home.
T.J. Rivera doing it again. And Ken Rosenthal, there might be a few other general managers in baseball sitting at home watching today saying, he was out there for us too.
Yes, he was, Matt. He was unprotected by the Mets, not put on their 40-man roster last winter, available to any team in the Rule 5 draft. But he wasn't the kind of guy who normally gets selected. He didn't have a high pedigree, wasn't drafted, and he was a guy also who didn't really have a position. He's now settled in at second. But here is a player who in his minor league career has hit .324 in over 2,500 at-bats. As one of his teammates, Ty Kelly, said, when you're hitting .330 every year, someone is going to give you a chance. The Mets finally did.
A great point. Won the PCL batting title this year, did T.J. Rivera. And he, along with Jay Bruce, are aboard in a now 1-0 game for James Looney, who grounded out to third in his first at-bat today. Looney was a non-starter last night. Another player whose fortune changed significantly with a change of uniform during the season. Began the year as Padres minor league property and finds himself a few innings away from going to the postseason as a Met. He takes a strike and it's 1-1.
Yeah, he's also enjoyed his time batting in this ballpark. Why wouldn't you if you're a hitter? It's a great hitter's ballpark. If the wind isn't playing nasty tricks on you, it's a good ballpark to both sides of the field for power.
Looney with a drive right into that wind that knocks down for Odubel Herrera to retire the side. A run scores, 2 are left stranded. Middle of the 4th, 1-0 New York. Nothing against Bartolo Colon so far on this day. Jose Reyes trying to keep it that way, but that's a very fine bunt by Cesar Hernandez. It gives the Phillies their first base runner of the afternoon. Put it in a perfect spot.
These are some of the elements that the Phillies can do, and their young players, they like this man a lot in the leadoff spot. And his progression, the speed, they've got a couple guys that can create this kind of havoc on the defense and the pitcher. And they're looking to just get a little bit more pop in the lineup as they move forward and progress and get back to being relevant in the East.
Again, the first Phillies base runner today, and here's Andres Blanco now. He was one of the 5 strikeout victims hung by Colon first time through the order. Yeah, did you get that sense, and we spent some time with Pete Mackanin before the game, and not to make this an entirely Mets-centric afternoon on television, it does mean more this day for the Mets than it does for the Phils, but did you get the sense that Pete Mackanin is comfortable with their evaluation process of a lot of the players that they've been taking extended looks at in September?
Yeah, I also got the sense that, you know, when the teams are built today, right, you've got many factors that didn't exist before and much more information, and that can be good and it can be bad.
Wrap to second. Rivera to Cabrera. Back to Looney, the double play. Just like that, the bases are clean with 2 gone.
And
a reminder, the postseason begins on Tuesday. The AL wildcard game on TBS. Wednesday, ESPN has the National League wildcard game. And then Friday, the NL Division Series begins on FS1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go.
we should also throw there should be some maybes there.
You're talking about the maybe on Monday and
Maybe.
the what if there's a 3-way tie and all this. Boy,
that could be pushed back a little bit.
how disappointing it is for you. I know that you root for this at the end of every season, the biggest stranglehold atop the wild card. What if it doesn't happen again this year? You're going to be.
I'm going to be bummed because I'm pushing for some change. You know, I want to see some change in that area, but it would be exciting. I think that's what people who like chaos want to see, how the chaos gets uncovered, and maybe a team playing 3 or 4 different places in 4 different games would be exciting.
Well, there's a chance, I believe, for the Tigers to play 4 games in 4 different cities in 4 days if everything collides perfectly.
Well,
Frank Herman up in the bullpen for the Phillies.
you know me, I like to think outside the box, and one thing that baseball might want to consider down the stretch or in the future is when you have these scenarios play out, we only have a few domes in our sport, right, where guaranteed weather cannot affect the outcome of playing that game. And I think they have to take a look at housing some of these games potentially, because the lateness of it, in a Milwaukee or in a Houston, where they can get multiple games in at the same time. Just a thought.
So have the teams that have to play these play-in games meet in the middle of the country, play in a controlled environment, and then move on to the rest of the postseason.
In a chaotic situation, not in a normal situation.
Interesting. Feel like a college volleyball tournament or something like that.
been there.
Everybody gets a Chick-fil-A sandwich before the game.
Well, to finish that thought with the Phillies, what basically today you build with youth, right? A lot of young prospects. You got all these different guys you're trying to analyze and trying to project in your future. Some will, some won't. But you still got to have a veteran presence. You still got to spend money in an area where nobody talks about it. That veteran guy that's going to help these young guys become big leaguers, that veteran guy that could provide, maybe not at the great offensive output, but has a value in the clubhouse. You look at what the Braves have been able to do, and many people would say have passed up the Phillies. Who would have thought that conversation would have been at the All-Star break when the Braves were mired in one of the could have been a historically bad year. They added Matt Kemp. Their offense has been the best in baseball since the second half. They now have a future they look forward to in a different way. That's where the Phillies are trying to get. That's what they're looking to do in the offseason if they can find that guy.
Another big wave and a miss by Odubel Herrera, who just has all kinds of trouble against Bartolo Colon. Nothing in the Phillies' fourth. Premium, the #1 live streaming sports service, delivers everything you've come to expect and more. Watch every out-of-market game live in HD on over 400 supported devices. Visit MLB.tv for details. The Phillies have made the AT&T call to the bullpen for right-hander Frank Herman, whose first pitch home to Travis d'Arnaud is lined into left field. Leadoff hitter aboard for New York for the second straight inning.
Bartolo Colon, as every pitcher who doesn't particularly like to hit, is very happy when the guy before him gets a base hit, because now all he has to do is get a bunt down. Now this is where the Phillies have struggled from really second half on, particularly in the last month. Their bullpen has not gone too many times where an individual hasn't given up a run in their latest streak. ERA way up there.
Here's Colon now. Howard picks up the bunt and tags him out.
Interesting there for Howard. That ball would have gone foul, but getting the out. Watch this bunt hit pretty firmly, and it's going to go foul. The ball's going to keep trickling. See right there, and that's when you know it's going to go foul. But he decided to get the sure out. I'd have been more tempted to let it go foul.
Just to watch him swing it again?
Well, I mean, he could pop the bunt up.
Sure.
He could strike out and
keep the runner at first base.
Right. Keep him from.
Here's Jose Reyes now. Reyes is lined out and struck out today. Four innings from the starter Phil Klein. Frank Herman, the first of what is likely to be a series of pitching changes here this afternoon. 1-1 to Reyes.
Yeah, as much as maybe even Pete did not want to do this, it's the options he has left for his ball club. He doesn't have 5 guys to pencil in to get him a bunch of innings, so he's going to have to rely on his whole bullpen and probably see about 5, I would say 5 more pitchers to get through this game.
Well, you talked about how the Phillies bullpen has been in pretty bad shape in the month of September. 9 losses and 8 blown saves this month alone. A September bullpen ERA over 8. And a lot of that damage has come courtesy of the New York Mets. The Mets alone have cashed in on 29 earned runs in 20 innings against the Phillies bullpen. And they're getting arms hot behind Herman. Breaking ball, bounce past Hernandez on into right field. They're going to try it with d'Arnaud. Here's the throw to the plate. It is not in time. Had to wait. Home plate umpire Will Little got his feet knocked out from under him, and by the time he could regather, he indicated safe at home plate, though it was a lot closer than it may have looked.
Yeah, pretty good throw and a much better slide. The throw maybe took him a little bit too far off. As he goes to reach to get the glove down, you could see the hand get underneath the glove. When I saw it live, I didn't think the throw was that far away from the plate, but the lack of speed by d'Arnaud was made up by a much better slide.
So Reyes with an RBI single. He gets to second on the play at the plate, and now a chance for Asdrubal Cabrera. Cabrera has singled and walked today. Bullpen activity behind Herman as a left-hander Patrick Schuster is up for Philadelphia. We talked about some of the big hits Cabrera has had down the stretch for the Mets. One of them came against Frank Herman at Citi Field on Sunday. Part of a rout, but a big hit in terms of its magnitude and big in terms of the runs driven in. A grand slam in this matchup a week ago. Cabrera getting another shot at Frank Herman here.
I think for the Mets and just some of their victories of late, find a way might be the slogan. Find a way via starters on the mound. Find a way. They had a heartbreaking loss against the Braves where the game-winning home run from Cespedes was robbed by Inciarte, and then they came back in an improbable way, tied it up in the ninth, went behind again in the extra innings, and won it with some home runs.
Cabrera lines to center. Herrera there to make the catch, and there are 2 away. A 2-0 lead for the Mets in the middle of the afternoon, and as we've talked about today, a win not only guarantees a wild card, it guarantees home field in the wild card game next Wednesday at Citi Field.
And we couldn't get out of Terry Collins, and understandably so. I mean, he hasn't sewn anything up yet, but from the gratifying aspect, I tried to get a sense of how tough this year has been on him, mentally, with all that he has had to deal with the injuries and where are we going to get offense or where are we going to get pitching. It's been the stability of their bullpen. I think that's been one thing he can count on, but this must be, for a lot of unexpected guys who get called up, a very gratifying experience for a manager if he's able to get in the postseason when no one would have given him a chance.
Sure. I mean, that's when you're managing, right? He's not writing the same 9 all-star names onto a lineup card every day. He's really had to reach deep to keep the balance going here. Oh, and 2 the count to Cespedes. Yeah, Terry told us before the game he's not a guy that gets tired, and having spent some time around him, we can kind of vouch for that. He's got this youthful kind of Mickey Rooney bounce to him all the time, and he said, even I'm tired now. This season has gotten to me. It doesn't mean he hasn't enjoyed the challenge, but it's been a lot. A ball and 2 strikes, the count to Cespedes now. Curtis Granderson next. Cespedes is grounded into 2 double plays in this one, trying to keep a modest 3-game hitting streak alive. And Klein hoping to minimize the damage at just the 1 run. In the air for Altair, and Frank Herman does minimize the damage at just a run. Here it is. Darno scoring on the Reyes base hit. Middle of the day, and it's 2-0 New York. forecast is sponsored by Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Big mural on Walnut Street celebrating Phillies franchise history and notably their 2008 World Series victory over the Tampa Bay Rays. Ryan Howard certainly a big part of that success story. He'll bat second here in the 5th. Maikel Franco leads things off for the Phillies, down 2-0.
As we were talking earlier in the inning, and you see the history of these proud Philadelphia Phillies organization, that's what they're trying to get back to as soon as possible. And to help guys like Franco, who early on in his career has never seen a pitch he didn't like, but has tremendous power, you need to have some presence that put yourself in the lineup to help a guy like him out, so he doesn't feel like he has to carry the load or be the guy or always play above what is expected.
Little inside out swing and a base hit to right. So a runner aboard for Ryan Howard. A 5th round draft pick by the Phillies back in 2001. National League Rookie of the Year 4 seasons later. MVP the year after that. He won a World Series in 2008. And he'll ride off into the Philadelphia sunset after the weekend. 2nd on the all-time home run list and number 3 in runs batted in.
I'm going to tell you why I personally didn't like facing him in his heyday, because he was so strong. He could sit back and wait, hit the fastball the other way, hit these majestic fly balls that would go out of this ballpark, and that's what made him so scary. Now a little bit of that bat speed and obvious talent has taken its toll. As you see, they're hoping that he hits the ball anywhere between the pitcher's mound and the right fielder. Nobody on the left side. Basically nobody on the left side.
A ball and no strikes to Ryan Howard. Franco aboard. That base hit from Maikel Franco, by the way, his first in 15 plate appearances against Bartolo Colon. That's a lengthy 0 for 1 for 16 now against a guy he's got a lot of experience against. And Ryan Howard has tied it here in the 5th. A big moment for one of the all-time Phillies in his final weekend in uniform here. And they want a curtain call.
Well, only Mike Schmidt has done it more often.
Brand new storyline this afternoon. Here's Cameron Rupp now, a 2-2 ball game.
Yeah, and that's what I was making. The analogy of what Howard could do to this ballpark. He makes it look so much smaller.
Cameron Rupp with a ground ball to shortstop. There's one away. I mean, that ball got out of here in a hurry, John.
Well, you look at where the pitch was. He was ready, but this one came much more over the middle of the plate. Colon was trying to get him tied up on that front door, and you see the side angle. This ballpark is not going to hold many of his fly balls, and you can see the teammates responding accordingly. They know the story. Whether or not Ryan Howard plays somewhere else, DH, American League, he's had an incredible career and run here in Philly.
Here's Jimmy Paredes now with the 2-2 ball game on the scoreboard and one away. I want to bring Kenny in on this discussion because, Kenny, it's kind of a partial swan song. There are a handful of players who are playing in their final games with longtime employers this weekend. Matt Holliday in St. Louis, Ryan Howard here. Mark Teixeira has announced that he's officially retiring, but for a couple of these guys, we're not sure what the future holds.
Right. It's a little bit different for Ryan Howard than it was for David Ortiz and Mark Teixeira. He's not retiring. He wants to play next year. Came into today with a .935 OPS in the second half, so he's hit very well. Tomorrow they're going to have a ceremony for him, and that's something they couldn't do for Jimmy Rollins, Chase Utley, and Carlos Ruiz. Each of those guys was traded, but the ceremony will be perhaps a little bit awkward because Howard is not saying farewell to the sport. It's simply the Phillies, and it's their option. They can pick him back up to $23 million. They're not going to do that.
Paredes is aboard on a base hit. Yeah, we're not quite sure what kind of market there's going to be for a player that's going to be 37 years old in November that has had some serious injuries in his past, who has really turned into kind of a feast or famine bat. I'm not sure. I don't know if Ryan Howard finds a place to play next year as a DH, if he can stick around, or if this will be it.
That's why I'm actually, this is going to come as a shock, Matt. I'm softening on my stance.
On the DH?
Yeah. I think there should be a DH. I think it should be universal.
Reyes handles the infield pop.
And that's coming from a pitcher who enjoyed the opportunity and strategy of the National League with the differences. So my thought is, if we're going to stay with interleague play, then we need a universal rule. If we're going to go back to the American and National League, then let's leave it the way it is. Let the pitcher hit. But you can't have the best of both worlds when you have so many teams, like, just for example, a team in the hunt with the Detroit Tigers playing in a National League city, and they're losing one of their best hitters in their ballpark because they don't have a position to play him in Victor Martinez. So that's kind of where I am. And in the future of guys that could still possibly help a team like Ryan Howard, now it's going to seem like it'll be the DH kind of role. If that would be my opinion.
Cody Ashe is the pinch hitter here with 2 gone, and you saw some bullpen activity up for New York. That was Hansel Robles that was up a moment ago. Kenny, do you have a uniform? I mean, is there any sign as to any hint as to where, if any place, Ryan Howard gets a chance to play next year?
Matt, there is not. And keep in mind, the Phillies have tried to trade him for quite a while now, and they were willing to pick up nearly all of the salary, and they couldn't get anything done. So it would have to be a very specific need on a very specific team.
That looper's going to drop in. Ashe picks on the first pitch and dumps a base hit into shallow center. So now the Phillies have runners at the corners with 2 runs in and 2 away.
Yeah, Reyes got a good beat on this ball, but he could not quite close it enough, and Granderson was playing too deep to do anything about it. That'll be runners on the corners, and Colon trying to get this big out, keep the score tied.
Cesar Hernandez had the infield single back in the 4th, the bunt base hit that gave the Phillies their first base runner of the game. He's hitting .340 over his last 23 games and has a chance to deliver Philadelphia's first lead of the day right here. Colon starts him with a strike. Now, they're certainly paying attention in San Francisco and in St. Louis. When last we looked in on the Cardinals, they were down 3-0 at home against the Pirates. Jung Ho Gung home run against Michael Wacha in the 1st, holding up. Again, the Giants are home later tonight, hosting Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers. That is still a 3-0 Pirates lead. Game's now in the top half of the 5th inning at Busch Stadium.
Yeah, it's where you start pressing a little bit. If you're the team down, in this case St. Louis, you've got to find ways to scratch and get in this game.
Hernandez bounces to first, right in James Loney's tracks to retire the side. However, Ryan Howard has made a mark on this afternoon. His 25th home run of the season ties it in the 5th. Today's telecast is sponsored by Chevrolet. More 2016 J.D. Power Dependability Awards than any other brand. And by Pepsi. Whether it's a diamond catch in the outfield, a grand slam, or a no-hitter, remember to break out the Pepsi. Fanatic breaking out the moves as per usual here in Philadelphia on this Saturday, and now in the midst of a 2-2 ball game after the Ryan Howard home run. Temporarily, at least, cools some of the enthusiasm in the visiting dugout. Patrick Schuster is the new pitcher inserted in by Pete Mackanin. He'll get Granderson, Bruce, and Rivera in the visiting half of the 6th.
Matt, can I just say he's my favorite all time? The Fanatic.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Patrick Schuster.
Well, he could be.
Fanatic, he's good. Still good. Were you ever one of the visiting players that came in here and tried to mess with the Fanatic?
No chance. No, I never wanted to be humiliated, but I was one of those visiting players that come in here and just watch pregame when he would absolutely do his thing, and that's why I think he's the best.
Undeterred on the lefty-lefty matchup. Curtis Granderson singles to open the 6th, and that's the 3rd straight inning that the Mets have put their leadoff hitter aboard.
He's put some spells on a lot of people. It hasn't worked lately when I'm sure, the Fanatic would like to see his team get back to prominence. I don't think that and Tommy Lasorda thing ever gets gets old.
It's always good. Always plays. There's Jay Bruce now with the runner aboard. Bruce is lined to center and walked. He was walked intentionally in the 4th.
You can see how he would be Schuster tough on left-handers. Throws across his body, a little sidearm action. Ability to throw a curveball and sink the fastball. Try to induce this ball on the ground for a double play.
A wave and a miss. More bullpen activity behind Schuster. The veteran right-hander David Hernandez is up. Even though they got 4 out of Klein, it is going to be a bullpen game this afternoon. And as John indicated earlier, we are likely to see a different pitcher for each inning here after the starter departed. That one bounces away from Rupp. Granderson with a free 90 feet to second base.
Yeah, this one probably not classical. You don't want the ball to go down with your glove that way. You want to turn it the other way and try to get your feet in position. He was just crossed up a little bit. As the Phillies continue to build their future up the middle, when you think about Hernandez and Galvis and Franco and Rupp, you'd like to see some upgrades a little bit from the catching aspect. Calling the game defensively, he can definitely hit.
Bruce lines softly to second. Hernandez has it, and there's one away. You know, I get that that's a wild pitch. I know what constitutes a wild pitch versus a pass ball if you're the official scorer, but I think even most catchers will tell you that's a wild pitch that should be received.
Yes, would agree.
And here comes Pete Mackanin. That's going to be all for Schuster. They wanted him for the 2 left-handed batters for Granderson and Bruce. David Hernandez is hot. No formal indication yet of a change. And now the skipper takes the baseball, and that means the Phillies will make another pitching change. We'll be right back. Unstoppable drama of the 2016 postseason begins on Tuesday, October 4th. Go to MLB.com/postseason for a full schedule. The veteran right-hander David Hernandez summoned out of the Phillies bullpen, and his first offering to T.J. Rivera is hit in the air for the infielder Cesar Hernandez. Granderson still standing at second base now with 2 gone.
Comes out of the pen and delivers a curveball. Fastball, curveball. He's got a pretty good fastball. Velocity wise, you see the numbers on the year. And former starter, and seems like that's going to be the case for a lot of guys lately. Former starter, now guy out of the bullpen.
Yeah. He signed a free agent deal to come to Philadelphia this past winter. A couple of years removed from missing nearly 2 full seasons recovering from Tommy John surgery. He goes to work on James Looney now, who's been held hitless today, 0 for 2. And another breaking ball starts him with a strike. You could probably say for David Hernandez, as you can for a lot of TJ guys, the formerly harder throwing David Hernandez. One and one.
Well, what happens with that myth that grows even longer, and unfortunately for guys who go to the pen, you are going to throw a little bit harder out of the pen than your tendency would be to go back as a starter. And I know a lot of parents are hanging on to that myth for young children that get that surgery at a young age. Well, they're going to throw harder, they'll have a stronger tendon. That doesn't work that way, and certainly many people are trying to figure out how to slow down the Tommy John surgeries.
2 balls and a strike. Curtis Granderson singled to start the inning. He got to second on a wild pitch, all that with nobody out. Schuster retired Bruce. Hernandez then retired Rivera. And the Mets are hoping not to waste what looked like a golden opportunity to reclaim the lead.
And I'm surprised they've been pitching to him in this situation. I don't know if they will anymore in a 3-1 count. But with a base open and d'Arnaud on deck, and Looney, his ability to love hitting here but be able to drive in runs, I'm a little surprised by it.
3 balls and a strike to James Looney. Got a pitch to hit that time. And the bat flip tells you all you need to know about a 2-run home run.
Can I say a lot surprised now?
That's what they call first guessing in the business, John. You were out in front of that. And James Looney was out in front of that pitch and gives the Mets their 2-run lead back.
I know the difference is you got more of a veteran pitcher on the mound than your previous guy, but with a base open, the wind blowing the way it is, and d'Arnaud is not exactly knocking the cover off the ball, I would have liked my matchups a little bit better, not to mention a 3-1 count.
I want to see the flip again. Here's Travis d'Arnaud now. It's 4-2 New York.
Well, Looney's not known for a ton of power, but if you get it in that sweet spot, see, they try to go in. He's got that groove swing, and he realizes under normal circumstances he wouldn't probably do that, but this game holds a lot more for the Mets.
Travis d'Arnaud follows with the ball near the same spot. Altair has room on this one, however, and that puts away the inning. Real hard holding back the smiles when you're James Looney. His 9th of the year for the Mets is a big one. It reclaims their 2-run lead. It's 4-2 New York. Later today, a college football doubleheader kicks off on Fox at 4:30 Eastern in the Big 12 when Baker Mayfield and the Oklahoma Sooners face Kyle Hickson, number 21 TCU. Then at 8:30 Eastern, undefeated Arizona State takes on USC. And it's all streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Well, moments ago here in Philadelphia, James Looney gives the Mets a 2-run lead and puts them 3 innings away from moving on into the postseason. Again, at stake today, a Mets win clinches a wild card berth and home field advantage on Wednesday at Citi Field. A new pitcher on for the Mets here to start the home half of inning number 6. The veteran left-hander Jerry Blevins takes over and gets Andres Blanco, Odubel Herrera, and Michael Franco.
Yeah, you see the 71 games and only 41 1/3 innings, so certainly a specialty out of the bullpen for Terry Collins. Sneaky, quick. I know you hear that term a lot. The reason you say that is because the miles per hour doesn't make it seem like it would be difficult to pick up his fastball, but he definitely has served a valuable role, as have most of the bullpen for Terry Collins. I've seen a lot of numbers. I've seen a lot of things. I'm getting used to things I shouldn't be used to. 30 pitchers per team per year. But the fact that the Nets has only used 22, that blew my mind.
Yeah.
I mean, with all the injuries you would expect, that would have just taken its toll. But they've done a nice job at only using 22.
Well, you'd never guess it when the injuries, when the pitchers lost, are franchise pitchers. Guys like Matt Harvey, Steven Matz, Jacob deGrom. I mean, it's not just like they're flipping over number 5 starters every couple of weeks. This was the core of the team.
They went out to go get Jonathan Neese, and he ended up going on the DL with a knee injury. So they tried to fill the void that was coming.
Full count now, 3-2.
And even through it, in Jacob deGrom and battling through what he did, and ultimately needing to have surgery, and Steven Matz the same thing, and Syndergaard after the season's over going to have surgery to remove some bone chips. Those are the byproduct of last year.
Into center field, Granderson in retreat to make a fine running catch. Well, they're still waiting on Zach Wheeler to pitch. Tommy John surgery last year. He's been shut down since. Matt Harvey lost to thoracic outlet surgery, a serious procedure. Steven Matz with a shoulder out for the year. Jacob deGrom's elbow cost him the rest of 2016. And as you mentioned, John, Jonathan Neese was re-imported for depth, and even he succumbed to the injury bug. In fact, only the Cardinals and Royals have used fewer pitchers than the New York Mets this year. The Royals have not had any kind of success replicating their formula from last year when they got 5+ out of their starters. Here's Odubel Herrera now with 1 away.
I mean, honestly, what the Dodgers are doing this year is not sustainable, but it's working. It's working in this year. They've used a ton of starters, and all the issues they've had and all the people they've tried to reload, and the bullpen, we call it shoots and ladder from the minor leagues up, taking innings off of certain guys by the options that they have. It's just not a long-term solution. But it's been a short-term success for the Dodgers so far. When Clayton Kershaw went down, no way could you have seen them chase down the Giants. Now, the Giants have contributed to that. But I think long-term, if teams don't get back to finding out ways to keep their starters healthy, you cannot sustain a long run or long-term success in an organization at the rate that we're going and expecting young, underdeveloped arms to be able to fill the gap. I just don't think that's a cycle that you want to get in.
A ball and a strike to count to Odubel Herrera. Did not look very comfortable against Bartolo Colon today. Struck out twice. I will say this, though. However, if you are going to have success in that capacity, short starts, eating up a lot of innings with your bullpen, the two things that seem to be critical in that regard are having relief pitchers with enough minor league options every year to where you can manage the cumulative bullpen workload by moving guys up and down from AAA. You kind of hinted at that as Herrera swings and misses, and having a veteran swingman, one or two if not more, that can help bridge that gap. You know, Chicago has Trevor Cahill who can do that. The Yankees had used Luis Severino in that capacity. Adam Warren's been that guy for both the Cubs and Yankees this year. That kind of arm becomes invaluable in today's game.
But you said invaluable, but I don't know that they value it. And that's the problem. What they're valuing and what the financial gain or resources that exist, the game has shifted in a different arena and a different philosophy. And I think that is going to take its toll. And you're not going to be able to continue to find options, continue to patchwork, continue to find the guys that you can shuffle the deck.
Full count to Odubel Herrera. Breaking ball not only almost hit him, it was almost a strike. And there's one on here in the 6th.
See that knuckle curveball, but didn't get it done.
Here comes Terry Collins now, and with Maikel Franco due up, they have made the call for Hansel Robles. A pitching change for the Mets. We'll be right back. Baseball sponsored by T-Mobile. He's lurking on deck again. Earlier today, Ryan Howard's 382nd career home run tied the game at 2 temporarily. Mets have since enjoyed a 2-run home run of their own by James Looney. And it's a 4-2 Mets lead. One that the new New York pitcher is trying to hold as Hansel Robles takes over on the mound. He'll get Maikel Franco and then Ryan Howard with a runner aboard and one away in the 6th.
Well, I can promise you one thing. Franco, when he gets at the plate, they've got about an 80% chance he's going to swing at the first pitch. So when you're a pitcher coming in and out of the pen, you got to know that. You got to be able to adjust and make the best pitch you can, and not just assume he's not going to.
See the overall line on Hansel Robles, and the Mets are hoping that the last 13 or so appearances from him are indicative of what's to come in a postseason run. He's been really good of late. 15 innings of work, 15 strikeouts, and only 2 runs allowed over his last 13 games. And that run comes on the heel of a very bad series of outings that saw him yield 14 earned runs over 11 innings. So here's Franco now. He has singled and struck out today.
Robles does have a good arm. You saw him get underneath right there. That pitch was nowhere close to even entice Franco from being able to go after it.
Herrera aboard. He is a threat to run. 25 stolen bases in 32 attempts, and a breaking ball catches the strike zone. It's 1-1. Again, Ryan Howard waiting on deck. Fastball on the corner, 1-2.
Two good pitches right there against a power hitter. The next two guys can leave the ballpark. He goes with a slider, and then he goes with a fastball and paints it. You see the first move, Franco trying to open up his hips. He loves the ball out over the plate. And of course, he loves left field. Why wouldn't you?
Got him. Well, I'll tell you, between Herrera and Franco, they're the couple of hitters in this Phillies lineup that just do not get cheated.
No, they don't. And you see that first move. You see his belt buckle open up. You see it quicker than you probably want to as a hitter.
Those are big two-strike hacks. Wow. So now Ryan Howard again. 48 career home runs after taking Cologne deep in the 5th. And in fact, only a handful of players have beaten up on Mets pitching over the years the way Ryan Howard has. Past the shifted second baseman. Herrera to third. And it's turning into an even nicer afternoon for Ryan Howard.
The last two, he looks locked in on the fastball. This one against the shift, but hit so hard and curving away. Howard has proven that he still has life in his bat for somebody.
Runners at the corners now. Cameron Rupp is grounded out twice today. He represents the go-ahead run here in the last of the 6th.
He also represents the new style or look of catchers, both him and Gaddis.
A couple of big boys.
Strong.
When you stand next to Cameron Rupp, I mean, I'm not going to make anybody forget about Andre the Giant, regardless of who I stand next to. But I mean, he has the look and size of a guy that might have just ridden in on a bull and parked it out back. He's huge. Pitch from Robles misses high, and it's 1-1. I want to get back to Howard for just a moment, because we were talking about the damage he's done against the Mets all time. That home run he hit earlier today, his 48th at New York's expense. The only players to have ever hit more home runs against the Mets are Willie Stargell, Chipper Jones, and Mike Schmidt. He is in very heady company on that list. 1-2.
Pretty much unhittable, whether it's a strike or not. Looks good here. I want to try to get about 2 more inches off that pitch if he wants to go away with it.
The 1-2 pitch. Yeah, Rupp was on his big, lively 97-mile-an-hour fastball.
The trick in this game, and it's not always easy when you're a young pitcher, is you try to figure out which hitters never come off fastball, which means every pitch they're looking for to swing the bat is a fastball, and the guys that do come off the fastball. And over time, you learn which guys are willing to adjust, and some guys that 2-strike swings is the same as their first and second swings of that bat.
Herrera and Howard aboard with 2 gone. The 1-2 once again is swung on and lined softly into left. Cespedes comes on to make a shoe-top catch and retire the side. Two left stranded in the home sixth. We head to the seventh this afternoon in Philadelphia. It's 4-2 in New York. View of what's happening in the National League wildcard race. The Mets started play with a one-game advantage over San Francisco, who's in action later on tonight hosting LA. The Cardinals are on the outside looking in. More so when you consider they still trail the Pirates 3-0 at home, though St. Louis is trying to put something together with runners at second and third in the bottom half of the sixth inning. We'll keep you posted on that one. Alejandro De Aza leads things off as a pinch hitter here in the seventh, as David Hernandez continues for the Phillies. So De Aza, then the top of the order, Reyes and Cabrera. Bullpen caravan continues, and Fernando Salas is getting hot in the pen for the Mets. Cue shot foul, and it's still 0-2 to De Aza.
It just seems like the race for the wild card forever has been like one game. It's never been. We've seen these three teams all lose on the same night periodically, and then finally the Mets have been in a position a little bit longer, and they're hoping they can just nail it down today and not worry about it any further.
And they can do so with a win. Forget about St. Louis, forget about San Francisco. If the Mets hang on and beat the Phillies, they're 3 innings away from doing that. They will not only clinch a wild card spot, they'll know that that game will be played in Flushing, Queens on Wednesday night, a home game for New York, as De Aza sends a ball out to center, and there's one away to start the seventh. The American League story is much more convoluted, much more challenging if you're trying to figure out the logistics. Here's Jose Reyes now with one away. Toronto Blue Jays slide has opened the door for Detroit, for Seattle, almost incredibly so. And it's a legitimate 4-team race for those 2 wildcard chairs in the junior circuit. Here it is. Baltimore's gotten hot down the stretch. They lead Toronto by a game. Detroit's just a half game back. And again, that half game, if needed, will be made up on Monday with the Cleveland Indians. And it's just incredible that Seattle's only a game off the pace. Toronto has single-handedly kept Seattle in it.
I can't help but think of Cleveland's scenario. Here they have locked up their division. For some of their guys, some needed rest. They play a day earlier than the National League, but they will be forced more than likely to play a game on Monday that will matter to the Detroit Tigers.
Reyes slaps a ground ball to shortstop. Blanc goes up with it and throws him out by a step. You know, when you talk about the teams in play in the American League, and we talk about the Mets overcoming all their pitching woes, same with the Dodgers. The Cleveland Indians have the same kind of situation. Danny Salazar's status is in question. Carlos Carrasco hurt. Corey Kluber with a, fortunately for them, not an arm injury. But Kenny, is there any clarity as to Cleveland's starting pitching depth in light of all these injuries?
Not much. And start with that Monday game if necessary. They're going to turn it into a bullpen day. Not going to use anyone that they would depend on in the American League Division Series, even though that game could decide home field advantage for their series against Boston. Then you get to game 1 of the division series, and it's okay, who do you start? Corey Kluber. Will he be ready coming off that quad strain, or will it be Trevor Bauer? And then Danny Salazar also could enter the equation as a reliever. They could pitch him tomorrow. He's had that forearm stiffness. They're not getting too excited, but they're hopeful that he could be available in relief against Boston.
Well, a lot of things for Terry Francona and Mickey Callaway to go through there in Cleveland. It's been a challenging end of the season for them. A ball and 2 strikes. The count to Asdrubal Cabrera. I get the bullpen game on Monday. If they need to play that Monday rain makeup game, it's going to mean much more for Detroit. And I don't think the Indians are going to put themselves in any bad place just to try to obtain home field advantage. They know they're in. Cabrera with a swing and a miss, and an impressive inning, 1-2-3 style for David Hernandez. 7th inning stretch in Philly, and it's still 4-2 New York. Is sponsored by DirecTV. If you call yourself a sports fan, you got to get DirecTV. And by Domino's. Order online and track your order. Well, the Mets 3 innings away, 9 outs shy of punching their ticket, pardon the pun, to the postseason. And Fernando Salas, who's been terrific since coming aboard on a lower profile deal from the Angels, will take the 7th inning, as he has these last few weeks. He's really established himself as a reliable 7th inning option for Terry Collins.
He's done a nice job. Fastball, curveball, changeup. Filled in nicely for the Mets as they try to bridge the gap to their closer. 50 saves.
Jerry's familiar waiting in the wings. And here's Jimmy Paredes to lead things off in the home 7th. Salas making his 17th appearance with the Mets. He's pitched in 16 1/3 since coming to New York. Has allowed just 3 earned runs and enters today having retired 18 of the last 19 he's faced, making 19 of the last 20. Today's Budweiser game summary, and a couple of home runs have been highlighted. Ryan Howard's 2-run home run. It pulled the Phillies even for a temporary moment in time, not before James Looney redistanced New York with his 9th of the year. 5 innings of work from Bartolo Colon. He passed Charlie Huff on the all-time strikeout list with 5 of them today.
Well, the long ball has been part of the Mets, and that certainly came into play, but 2 big hits with runners in scoring position. And that has not been a strength of the Mets so far this season. So 2 big hits have gotten them the lead, and you could tell that not position players who in the game, but guys who can't affect the game, they start counting outs because they know what's at stake if they can get a few more outs and close this thing up.
0-1 the count to Aaron Altair, who is stuck in a 2 for his last 22 at the plate.
Speaking of things that are at stake, we talk all the time about what's going on for the teams, right? There are some tremendous awards like Cy Young and MVP going to go right down to the final pitch on Sunday.
Yeah, I don't know that I can remember a year where there has been no clear slam dunk candidate for at least one of the 2 Cy Young awards. I mean, it's a mixed bag in both leagues.
Well, you got Lester going tonight. He's been on an Arrieta type role in the second half. He has not lost, hasn't given up hardly any runs. His teammate's going to go Sunday, Hendricks, who has only posted an ERA as on the year under 2. You've got Scherzer going on Sunday, who has been dominant in a lot of categories. He's trying to get 20 wins. Lester's trying to get 20. You see Kyle Hendricks has not been given the run support as much. Bumgarner finishing off his campaign. And it's going to be fun to watch. Even the MVPs are going to go down. I have a different take in the American League, and I think David Ortiz, as you see this strikeout, I think David Ortiz should get way more kick than he's getting. Just because he's a DH, he's having an unbelievable offensive year, and I can't help but think you got to take his age into consideration. Why not? Man's 40 and he's retiring and dominating.
Darren Ruff is the pinch hitter here with 2 out and the base is empty. There's no denying the impact that David Ortiz has had on the pennant race and what he's done as a guy kind of riding off into the night. A lot of the AL MVP candidates kind of slowed down in the month of September, including Jose Altuve, who we don't even put on this board. Josh Donaldson and the Jays struggling down the stretch. Mookie Betts has had a tremendous year, and so has Mike Trout. The problem for Mike Trout is, in the eyes of some, that he plays for a team on the West Coast that really has not been a postseason club at all this year. A strike to Ruff to put him behind 0-2. Kenny, do you vote for AL MVP this year?
I do not, but I published my awards yesterday, much to the disgust of the entire country. I've got Trout, Matt, and my concern is we've got one of the greatest players perhaps of all time, and he's going to win only 1 MVP in his first 5 years. And we're going to look back at this and say, what were the voters thinking? Now, this year, obviously the Angels are not a contender. I prefer my MVPs to come from a contender, but he has been so far and above, in my opinion, everyone else, that he deserves the award.
It's a hot take. by Ken Rosenthal.
And it'd be hard to argue. I mean, I just think about being an attorney for representing my client to make a case. That'd be a hard one to go against Mike Trout. But I think I can make a stronger case for David Ortiz, given the system that we have. We take all these things into consideration. We have analytics, statistics for everything, and he's going to get punished for being a DH.
Swinging a high drive into the left field corner. Cespedes looking up there. If it's fair, it's gone. It is, in fact, a solo pinch hit home run for Darren Ruff to make it a one-run affair.
Well, the only question here, once he hit it in the air for me, was would the wind blow it foul? That's the direction the wind is blowing. It actually will aid it, but if nothing else, it stayed fair. The distance was good. It was whether the wind would push it to the left of the foul pole.
So now Cesar Hernandez with 2 away and a run in. Salas starts him with a strike.
This pitch right there, almost on a tee for Ruff, and as he sees it, he knows it's got the distance, and the reason he keeps looking is that wind we were talking about. This ball blew about 5 to 7 feet left, but just inside foul pole.
Well, Darren Ruff hit that pinch hit home run in a plate appearance that started with an 0-2 count. Cesar Hernandez has an 0-2 count now. A one-run ball game here in Philadelphia. Again, such bigger stakes for the Mets. Looking for a win to seal it up, claim a wild card spot and home field advantage on Wednesday. Oh, and things are happening in St. Louis. A Matt Holliday RBI single and a wild pitch have put the Cardinals on the board, and that too is now just a one-run ball game. Cardinals still rallying with runners at the corners in the 6th.
Well, the Cardinals are built in a different way as well. We talked about the Mets via the home run. The Cardinals have hit the most home runs. They do damage via the long ball, but unfortunately they've had opportunities, as every team does down the stretch. 8 chances with runners on third and less than 2 outs against the Reds the other night. Were unable to get those runs in, losing a tough game. They're trying to rally against Pittsburgh.
2 balls and 2 strikes to Cesar Hernandez. When the Mets bat in their half of the 8th, they'll have Cespedes, Granderson, and Bruce, the teeth of the order. Two pitches popped up behind shortstop. Cabrera yields to Granderson. So as the Cardinals tie it at home with the Pirates, that's now 3-3 in St. Louis. It remains 4-3 Mets here in Philadelphia. Tuesday with the American League wildcard game on TBS. The next night, ESPN has the National League wildcard game. Then Friday, the National League Division Series begins on FS1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. Yoenis Cespedes leads things off in the top half of the 8th inning. It'll be Cespedes, Granderson, and Bruce against Joely Rodriguez, who takes over to make his 11th appearance of the year for Philadelphia. Cespedes sends a fly ball off the first base bag. Howard tracking it in foul territory, and Yoenis Cespedes has been kept very quiet this afternoon.
Well, he has been nursing that quad, and you saw him gingerly make the play in left field, and he hasn't been on a good stretch at the plate, and they're hoping that maybe the rest, if they could win today, maybe rest him tomorrow, get that day off on Monday, and 2 days go a long way in a big leaguer that's playing every day.
We welcome those of you just joining us from St. Louis. That game all locked up in the 7th inning. Here in Philadelphia, the Mets on top by a run and hoping for 6 more outs in the bottoms of innings to wrap up a wild card berth and home field advantage on Wednesday in New York. Curtis Granderson has been a big part of their success today. 3 for 3. He scored 2 of the 4 runs and takes a strike. It's 1-1. Joely Rodriguez is the 5th Philly pitcher used in this one today. One of the Phil's September call-ups. He's been terrific to begin his young major league career. He's allowed only 1 hit to the 19 batters he's faced. 7 scoreless appearances.
Yeah, it's always intriguing when you see a younger pitcher come up and try to get himself acclimated in the big leagues. He has a little bit of a crossfire delivery, which means he throws across his body. So I always wonder how that holds up over time. And as a reliever, he doesn't have to face a ton of hitters at a time, so you think he can get away with it.
2 balls and 2 strikes on Granderson. Another left-handed bat, another hot left-handed bat in Jay Bruce waiting next. And Granderson just gets a piece to stay alive. We saw Addison Reed up in the bullpen for the Mets. This is Luis Garcia up in the bullpen for the Phillies. The next 2-strike pitch, and Granderson lines that one just foul.
Can't leave anything over. As Granderson crouches, that last movement he makes to get ready to hit, there's an area that the reason he's on top of the plate, see this last move, and he crouches down, and then he can let the barrel go right there in that area. He struggles with a way. That's where you got to get it. He left it over there again.
Bounce to Hernandez, who plays it to his right for round number 2. Again, the big picture storyline in this one, the Mets just a few outs away from perhaps winning here today and clinching a postseason berth for the 2nd consecutive season. It would be just the 2nd time in Mets franchise history that they've advanced to the postseason in back-to-back campaigns.
It's amazing when you think about that.
It sure is. I mean, there have been some very good vintages of Mets baseball, but only in '99 and 2000 did they advance to the postseason in consecutive years. 0-1 the count to Jay Bruce. It's also been amazing to think of the parallels between last year, and we talked about it when we started the telecast. Last year it was great starting pitching and an offense that caught fire in August. This year it was patchwork starting pitching and an offense that caught fire in September.
And some individuals who are really at different times carrying the ball club. Granderson, one of them, the guy at the plate right now in his last handful of games, getting hot.
Jay Bruce started the day 10 for his last 20, having homered in 3 straight games. His 6-game hitting streak is on the line this afternoon. 0 for 2 with a walk. Into the corner, and that's going to drop in. Almost on cue, Bruce extends his hitting streak to 7 straight.
See, and this is just a young pitcher right here, and the mechanics of his delivery sometimes alter the location of his off speed. All he's got to do is get a ball down. That's it. And Bruce is not going to be able to hit it, but he leaves it up over the plate. You see his head pretty still, and no pinch run for Jay Bruce in this situation, that he just reaches down and flips it into right field for a base hit.
Juan Lagares will pinch run for Bruce. And here's T.J. Rivera now, who drove in a run with a base hit back in the 4th. Just the 2nd base hit allowed by Rodriguez since his September call-up. A Mets lineup that is averaging better than 5 runs a game since the middle of August. All coinciding with Asdrubal Cabrera getting hot, Jay Bruce getting hot. Rivera grounds sharply to shortstop, and the 2-out single is left stranded. Heading to the bottom of the 8th, the Mets still on top by a run. Rockin' Tires, the official tire of Major League Baseball. And by Geico, 15 minutes or more could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Liberty Bell, always a big attraction in the city of brotherly love. A big attraction on FS1. Hurt and Hustle, as Hall of Famer Frank Thomas and hit king Pete Rose defend their opinions on baseball's biggest issues and topics. Hurt and Hustle tonight at 7 Eastern, only on FS1. So a couple of defensive changes for the Mets as Juan Lagares takes over in center field after pinch running for Jay Bruce, and that moves Curtis Granderson over to right. And a pitching change as well. He has been terrific for the Mets all year long. Right-hander Addison Reed takes over in the 8th. First in the majors with 39 holds. That is not only the best total in the big leagues, it's a single season Mets franchise record and the 4th most in Major League history. Andres Blanco the first to face him. Blanco, Herrera, and Franco here for the Phillies.
Reed throws from the first base side of the rubber and throws across his body, so he creates spin on his fastball. It gives an illusion to the hitter.
slicing foul ball that's going to get into the seats. And it's 1-1 on Andres Blanco.
He'll cut his fastballs. He'll throw a kind of a smaller slider slash cutter. Used to throw harder. And now he's commanding the spots that he wants to go to, having success.
Catches the bottom of the strike zone there, and it's a ball and 2 strikes. As good as Addison Reed has been this year, as we take another look at the 1-1 pitch called for a strike, he has not particularly been sharp against the Phillies. 5 appearances, covering just over 4 innings against the Phils. He's allowed 4 earned runs and blown a couple of saves against Philadelphia this year. And more bullpen activity for the Phillies as Blanco rips that one foul. Hector Neris is up in the bullpen. Kind of true to his word, Pete Mackanin has really cycled through a lot of arms in this one. Neris would become the 6th Philly to pitch if he works in the 9th. Keeping our eyes on the Pirates and the Cardinals. When last we looked in there, it was a 3-3 tie. It is still 3-3 in the bottom of the 7th. St. Louis coming all the way back after falling behind 3-0 in the first. Still 1-2 to Andres Blanco. Giants later on tonight hosting the Dodgers. San Francisco taking the series opener yesterday. Line to shortstop, and Cabrera is just able to corral that ball. That had some funny English on it.
Yeah, this ball almost went by Cabrera. You see where he set up. Line drives coming right back towards him a little bit. And the glove side, he was able to get that ball hit very well by Hernandez. Cabrera said no problem. Yeah, the schedule makers had it right before the season started, but the teams didn't cooperate. The Cubs went out and obliterated everybody, so those late seasons against series against the Cardinals didn't mean as much. And then you look at Pittsburgh and St. Louis finishing the season. I thought that would directly, and it will impact the wild card. But then who could think 2 months ago that the Dodgers and San Francisco, it would have been wrapped up. You'd have said, oh, that's because the Giants went ahead and wrapped it up. They didn't.
Well, you'd have certainly thought that at the All-Star break, when the Giants got to the break with a class of the NL record. A strike to Herrera, and it's 1-1. I know this much, that when the schedule came out and the Mets took a look at it and they saw that they ended with as many games against the Phillies as they have, they probably liked the sound of that. And no disrespect, but the Mets have really dominated the season series over the few years with Philadelphia. Since the start of the 2014 season, New York is 38-17 against the Phillies. The only one team with a better record against another particular team over that period is the slapping that the Dodgers have put on the Diamondbacks since then. They've won 40 of 57 head-to-head with Arizona.
Yeah, I remember when that all started, where the Diamondbacks wanted to be relevant. They wanted to be a rival of the Dodgers, and then the celebration in their ballpark.
Yep. The romp through the pool, if you will. Two gone as Herrera flies into the opposite field. There is other stuff happening on this Saturday around baseball, other clinch scenarios today. We talked about this a little bit earlier. The Red Sox can clinch home field advantage in their division series with Cleveland if they win tonight, and if Cleveland loses. Boston's hosting Toronto. Cleveland's in Kansas City. For the Nationals, they can clinch home field advantage in their division series with the Dodgers if they win tonight, or if the Dodgers lose to the Giants. Here's Michael Franco, and on the first pitch, a fly ball for Granderson. Reed sets him down in order in the 8th. We're heading to the top of the 9th. The Mets looking for some insurance in a 1-run lead. It all comes down to this final weekend. The Mets holding a 1-game advantage for the top wild card spot. The Giants have the second chair. St. Louis currently tied at home with the Pirates, 1 game out of that second spot. We'll keep you posted on the Cardinals and Bucks. The Giants playing later on tonight. Meanwhile, the Mets are 1 full inning away from guaranteeing a wild card host night on Wednesday at Citi Field. They can not only clinch a spot today with a win, they would get home field as well. Looking for insurance against one of the surer things out of the Phillies bullpen this year. Right-hander Hector Neris has been outstanding. A strikeout away from the second highest strikeout total ever for a Philly reliever. He yields a leadoff base hit to James Looney in the 9th. Let's take you back to the 6th inning, and the home run that's been the difference, it belongs to the man who just singled to open the inning, James Looney. He doesn't hit a lot of them, as John mentioned, but his 9th of the year went 426 feet and gave the Phillies a 2-run deficit to try to come back from today. Statcast powered by Amazon Web Services.
Well, he's got a groove swing, and it's a pretty swing. It doesn't have a ton of power, but he has been a big pickup. When Duda went down, Campbell comes in to pinch run for Looney, and now you're hearing the chants in the visiting park of the Mets.
Travis d'Arnaud bunting, and that's a beauty, Judge. Campbell to second on a fine sac bunt by Travis d'Arnaud. So now an insurance strike is in scoring position with 1 away.
Very well executed bunt. One of the easiest things in all of baseball to do that nobody tries at anymore. Just takes practice, Matt.
That was very passive aggressive by you. Kelly Johnson will be the pinch hitter here with that insurance run standing at second base. J.R. Familia hot and ready to go in the bottom of the ninth. A ball and no strikes to the veteran left-handed hitter. Four pinch hit homers for Kelly Johnson this year. That ties him for the second most in all of Major League Baseball this season. Phillies know all about him off the bench. Had a pinch hit grand slam against Philadelphia back at the end of August.
Second duty with the Mets. Kelly Johnson came from the Braves this year.
Visiting fans making a lot of noise here at Citizens Bank in the ninth. And it's 2-2 to Johnson. Yeah, had Kelly Johnson known his career was going to go the way it's gone, he would have bought a house in Atlanta, bought a house in New York, and just maybe even bought a plane to take him back and forth. Called strike three. Moneris took something off and had Kelly Johnson a little confused at the plate.
Well, this is go-to pitch. I don't know if it's a splitter or a changeup, but he likes it. You see the rotation, the spin, almost like an okay changeup, but it could also be that a split change. He just likes it, and it's good. And when it's down, it's hard to hit. He left one up to Looney, and when it's up, it's a little easier.
So here's Jose Reyes now, 1 for 4 with a single and an RBI today. He's hit safely in 7 straight and 10 of his last 11. Trying to pick up that important insurance run, Campbell at second. By the way, when the Phillies bat in their half of the ninth, they'll have Howard, Rupp, and Paredes against that guy, J.R. Familia. A ball and no strikes to Jose Reyes. Fastball in for a strike. Looney started the inning with a base hit. Campbell pinch ran for him. Darno bunted him over to second. Johnson struck out as a pinch hitter.
As this game plays forward, I can only help but think of what Syndergaard is preparing for. He would like to not prepare for a start that matters tomorrow. He would love to be preparing for that one-game matchup against whoever it's going to be. Bartolo Colon, I don't think it matters whether it's the 7th game or just a regular season. He prepares the same and pitches the same. But you can imagine the young Syndergaard, all that he's been through, how amped up he would be if he gets the chance to pitch his way and his team into a postseason series against the Cubs.
3 balls and a strike to Jose Reyes. If the Mets hang on and win this one today, Noah Syndergaard will start tomorrow and pitch 1 inning. Three balls and a strike to Jose Reyes.
Yeah, I was a little surprised when I heard that. I might think that might change. I don't know why I think that, but I don't know unless you just want to have the feel of something. I don't know what the purpose would be to start one
just
inning.
Run him out there at all.
You could throw a glorified bullpen for all that matters.
Full count now, 3 balls and 2 strikes to Reyes, trying to pick up that insurance score at second base. And Met fans that have traveled this weekend since that they're on the verge of something special here. The SNY guys are here.
You either got to bounce this pitch or throw it higher than high or higher than normal.
Ball 4 to Reyes.
Actually, a pretty good take by Reyes right there.
So now it's Dribble Cabrera who has singled and walked in this one. The base hit in the first snapped him out of an 0 for 9. He's got Campbell at second, Reyes at first, and 2 away here in the ninth.
Already had two big 2-out hits.
Strike 1 to Cabrera.
Cabrera with a single and Looney with a 2-run homer.
Nearest out of the stretch. 1-1. If Cabrera can keep the line moving, Yoenis Cespedes would have another chance in what's been a forgettable afternoon at the plate for him. Campbell and Reyes aboard with 2 gone. One and 2. Not sure if Cabrera thought that one was high or outside or both. The 1-2 pitch home.
Well, when you're looking off speed and kind of going, your first movement is to go towards the plate. That's what that effect is going to have on a fastball. He's already close, but you can see that was just expecting something else. So that pitch, in essence, served its purpose. Now, if you can follow it up with a better off-speed pitch after that, Cabrera would have a hard time, in my mind, adjusting to those 2 different types of pitch recognition.
A little jam shot into shallow center field. It drops in. Here's Campbell to score. Throw to third on Reyes, not in time. Another in a series of big hits for Asdrubal Cabrera down the stretch.
You're going to see this pitch is up. It wasn't good enough. It came off the fastball that was up and knocked him off the plate, and he was able to get enough of this ball to just get a big hit to give him a 2-run lead. So that pitch previous did not have a good enough effect because he didn't make a good enough pitch right after that. Credit Cabrera for making the adjustment.
Boy, credit a Mets lineup that has really generated a lot with 2 out in an inning. 4 of their 5 runs have been scored with 2 out in an inning today. Got runners at the corners for Cespedes, and the fire is still hot.
You know, it's interesting. The Mets have played in a couple lopsided games lately, and one of them they were down 10-0 to these Phillies and battled their way back, got to 10-7, and I believe had the tying runs on base at one point, and they had a lot of these kind of at bats. Now 10-0's tough to overcome, but this is the approach that they've had where guys get hot, they score runs at a greater rate in the last 30 games than they had previously.
So now Cespedes, who has a 5th plate appearance this afternoon, 0 for 4 so far today. Hit into 2 double plays and popped out twice. Cespedes entered play today hitting under 220 over his last 18 games. So as John had mentioned earlier, today's kind of a furthering of what's been a little downward trend here at the end of the season for Cespedes. There is no arguing, however, that even when he's not swinging the bat as well as he has in the past, he is impacting games.
Yeah, no doubt. And you could just sense that he's obviously not 100% healthy either.
When Cespedes is in the starting lineup, the Mets are 105 and 74. When he's not, they are sub 500 team. And it's not just in his Mets career. This has been a trend for him since he broke into the big leagues in Oakland in 2012. His numbers may be hard to quantify, but you can't deny his presence. Icing the field goal kicker. Still 0-2 as he took time there. Big 2-out walk from Reyes. Even bigger 2-out single from Cabrera.
That would be a scary pitch to throw to Cespedes. Right there, that changeup. Got to locate it.
Staying alive with a couple of foul balls on 0-2. Here's another 0-2 pitch. And this one as well fouled into the seats. Or is it Rupp with a play? No, it's into the stands in the first row.
They've been trying to stay above the hands with fastballs. There's the pitch right there that might have got away with. And then he went back to the fastball. There's a spot of about 4 to 6 inches. That down over the plate golf swing, which we know Cespedes likes to play golf, feeds into his power, by the way.
Still 0-2 to Cespedes. And he got the corner to strike him out. And Cespedes is ejected. Oh, that's a real quick hook. Cespedes didn't like the 0-2 call. Had a few words, maybe even just one word for Will Little, and gets run out of the game. The Mets do get a run to ensure the lead. They are 3 outs away from moving on into the postseason. Call yourself a sports fan, you got to get DirecTV. And buy Domino's. Order online and track your order. Well, our Budweiser game summary. The Mets had a 2-0 lead early. Phillies caught him on a Ryan Howard home run, but New York has since distanced themselves And they are 3 outs away from a 5-2 win and a spot in the postseason. A win here this afternoon, as we've talked about all afternoon long, not only means the Mets play in the wild card game, it means the game will be held in New York Wednesday night at Citi Field in Flushing. So some changes as we get into the bottom of the 9th inning. Michael Conforto takes over in left field after Yoenis Cespedes was ejected last half inning. Eric Campbell was used as a pinch runner, and he will remain out there defensively at first base. And finally, Jeurys Familia, who, when he saved his 44th game of the year at the end of August, established a new franchise record for saves in a single season. He has since padded that record and is sitting on 50 saves as he enters here this afternoon.
Yeah, he's been unbelievable and looking to just be unbelievable for 3 more outs.
Ryan Howard's had a really nice afternoon, a 2-run home run and a single, playing in his final weekend as a Philly. Mets 3 outs away from a postseason berth, and Howard takes a strike. This group of hitters, Howard, Rupp, and Paredes, have really not had anything close to success against Familia. As you can see, the Mets play him in a right side overload again, and now it's 0-2.
Familia's got tremendous movement on his pitches. This is a fastball just right by up. Zach Britton from the left side, widely known for his great sinker. Familia from the right side has the equal.
A ball and 2 strikes. Yeah, they're wrapping it up. The Visqueen is being applied very quickly in the visiting clubhouse here in Philadelphia. Swinging a foul ball, keeps it alive for Howard on 2 strikes. 1-2 it remains.
I don't know how Howard got a piece of this. This is a good breaking ball after seeing 97, 98 away. Garneau probably want to make a little location change on this if they go to that pitch again and see him the belt.
Who will be the champion of this game?
Got to be Looney.
Yeah. Make case for Granderson, maybe.
Certainly.
Just playing devil's advocate. I hear you. Looney with 2 hits, the big 2-run home run after they had yielded the lead. That made it 4-2. They've tacked on 1 more. If the score stays this way, I would endorse your suggestion, Senator Smoltz, and give it to James Looney. The next 1-2, a wave and a miss, and the Mets are 2 outs away from moving on into the postseason.
Well, not exactly where he wanted, but enough off of that fastball at 93. It looked like his split. Each player gets a little bit more anxious.
Here's Cameron Rupp now.
I know everyone's saying, well, it's just the wild card game, but in this case for the Mets and what they've gone through this year, it's more than that.
Yeah.
It's triumph because of what they had last year and what they didn't have this year from a personnel standpoint.
And this was a team as recently as middle August 20th, John, just over a month ago. They were 2 games under 500 and 5.5 back in the wild card race with 3 teams to get over. And there was all that pitching uncertainty that you talked about. They didn't know about Matz's status. It was before they had learned of season-ending surgery for DeGrom, but his status was up in the air. They knew they were without Harvey at that moment. A ball and 2 strikes on Cameron Rupp. You know, you talk about the postseason awards, and because it just comes with the territory, managing in New York. And I guess a New York manager, whether it's Joe Girardi in the Bronx or Terry Collins in Flushing, Queens, you know, you hear it from everybody. Can't ever be good enough. But when you consider where the Mets are right now and what Terry Collins has had to deal with, we should get some consideration for that honor.
Yeah, both of them. You mentioned both of them. Both in New York have done a fantastic job. Girardi and Collins keeping their teams in the mix. And now Familia pretty pumped up.
Only Jimmy Paredes stands in the way of the Mets enjoying another postseason run. And as rain starts to fall here at Citizens Bank, sending a lot of the home fans for the turnstiles. Nobody that drove here from New York has any intention of leaving at this moment. The 1-0 to Paredes. How about this for keeping things interesting, John? A Jed Jerko solo home run has delivered St. Louis their first lead of the day. It's 4-3 Cardinals in the bottom of the 8th. The pressure is going to be on San Francisco tonight, hosting Clayton Kershaw and the Dodgers, if St. Louis can come back.
Jerko seemed to hit like 40 since the All-Star break. He's hit a ton of home runs, and so have the Cardinals.
A strike away from hosting the wild card game Wednesday night. Starting to think about a postseason matchup. Noah Syndergaard in a win-to-go forward meeting with, say, Carlos Martinez of the Cardinals, Madison Bumgarner of the Giants. That is appointment TV. Lined into the opposite field, and Paredes keeps the game going. That brings the tying run to the plate.
Good job by Paredes. Pitch away. You see his first move was towards first base, but he put it in play and took his chances. Didn't take a huge swing.
Aaron Altair hitless so far this afternoon, and 2 for his last 23. Again, he represents the tying run with the Phillies down by 2 out last of the 9th. It's tempting to even speculate farther into the postseason. The Mets win this one. If the Mets win the wild card game, they get the Cubs. Another postseason meeting with Chicago. A ball and no strikes to Altair. Since 2009, there have been 8 occasions where the same teams have matched up in the postseason in back-to-back years. And in 7 of those 8 occasions, the same team has won both series. So you play the same team in back-to-back postseasons, and you think you have a chance at revenge. It hasn't worked out that way recently. The Mets would love to have a chance to buck that trend this year. 2 balls and a strike.
And if you're the Cubs, you want this thing to go as far as you can possibly go. Play-in game, then a wild card game. And then whatever team that had to play 2 days in a row to get there, you want them to win.
Broken bat flare out to shallow center. Conforto comes on, and the New York Mets, for just the second time in franchise history, will play in the postseason in back-to-back years. A team again that was 5.5 back of a wild card spot, 2 games under 500 as recently as August 20th, with another late push to get him back into baseball's postseason. Terry Collins becomes the 3rd Met manager to take 2 different Met teams to the postseason, joining Davey Johnson and Bobby Valentine. What a satisfying moment for Terry in light of so much adversity, so many injuries. The Mets are going back to the big postseason dance. It is this afternoon's final out. That's the prevailing moment of the game, sponsored by the Hartford.
Well, last year was incredible for the Mets, but this year's got to feel a little bit more special as far as what they had to do to get there. Last year they had more weapons. This year they're just glad to be in the moment.
The Mets have won at 5-3. They will host the wild card game on Wednesday night. For John Smoltz and Ken Rosenthal, Matt Vasgersian, let's get you out to St. Louis for the conclusion of the Pirates and the Cardinals.